brilliant, very intelligent, but he just was just a
Yep.
wanted to take care of people. He did that all his life, and
Yep.
in small towns, like at his memorial service, pretty much everybody that came up to me said, "Well, your father saved my life, saved the life of somebody in my family, brought me into the world, took a family member out of the world." You know, it's just
Yep.
that's a small town
That
doctor.
span.
You know, made house calls, just
Yep.
took produce and for exchange for people paying their bills. They couldn't pay their bill. They'd bring them something, that they'd
Absolutely,
grown.
and that was, I mean, we have that as a story, but that was exactly how it was out of our time. And
Yeah.
and you grew up in, now you were 18 about what year?
Well, I don't know. I'd have to do the math.
Do the math.
It's sometime like 1970, 71, I guess.
71, and
My-
I was 66, so I'm 5 years older than you are, and so at that time, was music important to you? Because you have a career in, Andy, in music. You have been the sound guy and the music guy for the symphony, correct?
Well, yeah. Just
The
so I'll take you back to your question. So
Yeah.
my parents divorced right before my senior year of high school, and I was already, my dad and I were already having some problems. So I moved to Abilene with my mom.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and one of the things is that I wanted to play music. And my father, he was the songwriter at church. His brother sang with the Metropolitan Opera, an incredible singer. But he, like.
So it was in your genes. It was all part
Yeah,
of the, yeah.
but it's what I wanted to do. But I mean, it's a tough way to make a living. And
Yeah.
so he wasn't supportive of that. And so when I turned 18, he disowned me. He just cut me off. And so I was on my own.
Wow.
But I wanted to do that, and so I eventually, I came to Austin and started playing music. And then the group I had was MCA Records paid for us to do a demo, and looked like there was a record deal in the making. And we were doing kind of, Crosby, Stills and Nash we did our own stuff, but acoustic harmony. It was at the beginning of the cosmic, cowboy progressive country.
Right.
My contemporaries, the people I played some with, are Michael Murphy, Steve Fromholtz, B.W. Stevenson, people like that. Uncle Walt's band, those are all friends of mine.
Oh, wonderful. What an experience.
And so, but being in the studio, that was the place that I just, as soon as I got in the studio and started working in the studio, recording, I just went, well, that is where I want to be. This is the temple of music. Recording studio is where music is the total focus, and it's not about, you're not trying to sell beer, you're not trying to get people to applaud necessarily, you're just concentrating on trying to make the best music you can make, right, and to capture that. And so that just, from then on, that's what I want to do. And I got there as a musician, but eventually I really decided to devote my career to doing that, and I was so fortunate. I got to meet and work with my heroes. I mean, Phil Ramone, Al Schmidt, Rupert Neve, the Herbie Hancock, Wayne Shorter. Besides just all the classical stuff I recorded. I mean, I think I've recorded Joshua Bell, concertizing with the Austin Symphony 4 or 5 times. From the time he was very young, I've sort of watched him grow up on stage. And so I've got this panoply, of just amazing things. Speaking of heroes, I got to meet and work with Barbara Conrad, who's just an American hero of, in my opinion, gigantic proportion.
Yeah.
So it was easy. I was so drawn to it, and then just had just amazing opportunities all along the way. And so
what makes it now? When you first got into the studio, can you compare the studio of what it was technologically and all compared to where we've gone and evolving, and how you've evolved with it?
Yeah, well, when I was a kid, still in Dimmitt, Texas, I bought my first reel-to-reel tape recorder.
Like a web core or
Well, it
something
was a
like what?
Lloyd's. I remember exactly. It was a Lloyd's. It was a reel-to-reel. It was about this big, and it ran on batteries.
Yeah.
And you could change, and it had two speeds, and the way you changed the speeds is you unscrewed the screw on top of the capstan. You took off this thing, and then it made the capstan smaller.
Yeah.
So you could.
More rotations per.
Well, yeah. And so anyway, that's what I just learned by using. Like I just started
Yeah.
playing around with the recorder, and so I was really fascinated with it from the beginning, and because I could change the speed, I do silly things like I would record myself eating potato chips and then slow it down,
Yeah.
and it sounded like explosions, and just you do the chipmunk thing, and
Yep.
you'd record stuff slower and speed it up, and so just discovering the
Yep.
sort of the possibilities, and then when I first started to get into it professionally, well, there was a thing I remember another recorder I had later on. This is before Sound on Sound. If you wanted to play with yourself,
Right.
as it were, you could.
That's
on
all
this
like
one.
we teenage boys do.
Right. That's what we spent a lot of our time, trying to keep from doing. We wanted to play with the girls, but the before I got to hold of something you could do synchronous overdubbing with, you'd figure out there was a time delay. Like you had a record head and a playback head. So you could play back something that was recorded, but before what's called cell sync, it played back a little later compared to what you're hearing going in. So I figured out the time difference. So you'd have to play ahead this certain amount of time. And so it sort of dictated the rhythm of the song to some degree. But and that's also how, like Elvis and other that slapback thing that got
Sure.
used, that's sort of the same way that
No
happened.
kidding.
But then pretty early on when I actually got the opportunity to go start working professionally, you could do what's called cell sync, where you could record some tracks and then you could overdub it and you could hear it in sync. And the way the way that worked technologically is you put playback electronics from the record head. So it happened at the same, in time at the same space. So what you played is in sync with what was already there on the tape.
Holy.
And that's what made multi-track recording possible. And Les Paul is the one that's responsible for that. I mean, thank you, Les Paul, the father of modern recording.
Yeah.
And so from there, like it started like when the Beatles were doing stuff, not just the Beatles but others, it was 3-track.
Yeah.
And so initially, like if you listen to the Beatles stuff, you'll hear all of one thing on this channel, all things on this channel. There'll be stuff in the center. And it was mostly mono broadcasting back then, so it was very mono compatible, but you didn't have discrete panning where it was actually a matrix of across a stereo image. It was left. I mean, you had a button that said left. You had one that said center. You had one that said right, and that's what sent it to, this channel, center. These 3 channels, and then eventually that expanded, and what became the modern thing. We went from 8-track, went to 4-track, and then 8-track, and then 16-track, and then 24-track, and so on and so forth. So that just opened up all the possibilities for doing like what the Beatles did, what the Beach Boys did. I mean, what became modern popular recording techniques that allowed people like me that weren't great at playing everything perfect the first time, I could work on stuff and kind of do it again until I could get it right, and other people could add their thing later, and so that was how multi-track developed, and it was all on tape, reel-to-reel tape,
Absolutely.
and big tapes.
Analog.
And the thing that people, if you didn't do this, the thing that you would never really know is that tape has a smell. Like I could tell you by smelling the tape, this is Scotch tape, this is Ampex tape, this is Agfa. Because you'd rewind it, like once you've done a recording, you leave it tails out, so it doesn't do print through, where you'd hear this little echo of something before it happened. And so when you start the project, after you record something, you rewind it, or if you're going to do overdubs, then you store it tails out, so you have to rewind it to start it again at the beginning. And when you do that, the smell of the tape comes wafting up from the machine.
It permeates the studio.
Well, it doesn't go that far away, but if you're over the machine, and so
Yeah.
it's just part of the experience. But if you didn't actually do that, you wouldn't know that. That's not something that you would know if you hadn't experienced that.
And your sound, so to listen, so how many more tools do you have today? And when we're thinking about this, and where we're going, because I mean I was talking with some of the other musicians that I have. What does what is classical music, and what does it mean? What is there the wonderful aspects of every single genre that end up elevating it into that outstanding area. And this is what I think that the musical studios that we have today, now you can get in touch with that and bring whatever it is to the top.
Well, yeah, you can, and but at the same time, I mean, I'll tell you my journey,
Please.
going through, this whole process of modern recording, multi-track recording. Then MIDI came along, which allowed you to take synthesizers and record all these gestures on synthesized instruments,
Hmm.
and then have those play back and have that be part of the thing. Anyway, I spent years really learning how to do all this stuff, but there was a point that it just became not unsatisfying, and here's why it was unsatisfying: is that you start people would start, and myself included, you start to nitpick everything, and you're actually putting performances together. You were assembling them, it was, and so after a while it became tedious to some degree, and so I said to myself, here's, if you could do whatever you wanted to do, what would you do? And I said, what I really like to do is to record acoustic instruments as much as possible, with everybody playing at the same time in the same room, if that sounds the best, and the widest range of all possible musics. And I got to actually live my dream. I was the chief recording engineer at UT. I taught recording. I've recorded gamelan orchestras. I've recorded, just the widest range of things. At Austin Symphony, big bands. I mean, there's nothing better than a great big band. There's nothing sounds better than that. But the thing is I recorded live. Live was the thing, and there's something that happens live that's really hard to recreate. There's an energy,
Hmm.
especially when there's an audience. People, performers just
It's
step
an
up.
exchange.
Yeah, oh yeah, it's very very much an exchange. Each one feeds the other, and so that was the other thing that just makes it exciting. But I went from very complicated systems to going to making the simplest setup that I could make. My philosophy became, I'm a minimalist, so I would have the fewest microphones that would take to capture the sound that you wanted to, and I EQ, like if I have to use EQ, there's something wrong. The right mic in the right place. That was my philosophy, and so
Oh,
it takes a little bit more time up front, but the result to me is really great. And you're trying to, especially with acoustic music and concert music, at least I felt like what I'm trying to do is to capture the realistic, like I want the listener to feel like that they're there, at the concert. And so I'm not putting effects. I'm trying to do as little, I'm trying to I'm trying to pull the technology out of the way, is probably the best way of saying it, which
God,
is
that's
actually harder
beautiful.
than you think,
Oh God, yes. Oh God, yes. And
but
that
very
we
satisfying.
that so what are you at this time in your life? What are you interested in? What is still pulling you, saying, this is an area I want to explore and continue to grow, because you've continued to grow over your career. You've continued to have this as an elemental part of your personality and your vector.
Well, the only thing that I would have liked to have done that I didn't get to do is to mix for film. Yeah, I've worked some on some film stuff, but to actually do the score mixing, like I'd love to mix John Williams, score for a film. I mean, I never got to do that, and the people that do that do it really well. I've just got, I'm just, they're the greatest, in my
Oh,
opinion, because they bring all these things together. And the other thing too is the composers, like John Williams, all the film composers, the really good ones, are really good at this. They 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 leave a hole for the dialogue. They score, they voice you know, how they're orchestrating and dynamics, all this stuff, they leave a place for the dialogue. That when they're scoring it, they've got that, and so they're pacing to that, but they leave room for that to be easily heard and understood. And you still have the power of the music, you know, wrapped around it and giving the emotional impetus for whatever the scene is. But that's a real art. I mean, that's takes years to really perfect that, you know, get to where you can whip out the kind of stuff that the great film composers do, because they're in demand, and so they're just writing all the time, you know,
Yep.
and have a
Well,
system.
what is the talent here in Austin? When you look
it's
at it,
amazing.
it feels like that this is this is a node, an attraction that has a huge amount of talent in it.
Oh God, yeah, it has for a long time. And the reason I think that one of the main reasons is the university. I think is one of the main reasons that happens, because it's attracted people from all over the world and all different types of, you know, performers and musical styles, but also audiences. You know, audiences that are more educated, as it were, and so they can appreciate this. And each one feeds the other. Where great audiences attract greater musicians, and so on and so forth. But we have, like,
Oh,
in
I
every
love
form
that.
of music, and that's the other great thing that happens here is synthesis. There's like all these different styles of music that get synthesized and made into new forms of music. You know, where like conjunto or Latin gets put with, you know, punk or
Hmm.
reggae, or, you know, electronic music, you know, is put with acoustic music. It's just, you know, it's like people, whatever you can imagine it, people are willing to try it, and there's an environment that nurtures experimentation.
That is amazing. And well, I mean, now you're helping me to understand. I see it on the outside and I feel it and I intuit it, but now I can see some of the underpinnings, some of the going behind the scenes, and seeing how and I love it. I love what you said about the educated audience, because it feels to me that we're in a time of incredible sophistication, that the audiences, we're exposed to art.
Oh yeah.
Even if you watch cable television or you watch any television, you're watching a 30-second story when you're watching a commercial, and they're constantly working. We're constantly bombarded with beautiful. I mean, every one of those scenes is lit. Everyone is at work with. The actors are working and giving the best performance. That has having an effect upon us when
Yeah.
we're seeing. Yes, we have the downside of comparisons and the other challenges that we have, but just being the exposure of ourselves to art is is working on us. I think it's working on us to grow
Well,
us.
sure. That's what starts having refinement is, yeah, what you're saying. There's a ton of content. There's a lot of content, but having discernment is an educated part of it. Is like
Exactly.
to be able to discern. And you know, that's an opinion thing too. It's like you like what you like for whatever reasons that you like it, but discernment is what gives you refined tastes. And so then you become like any discerning, like if art, dance, food,
Right.
whatever, you know, like you make your decisions about that. But the more you pay attention to something, like if you're a fan of that and you pay more attention to it, you learn more about it. Each time you learn
Exactly.
more about it, and you get a deeper understanding or a deeper tasting or a deeper feeling, or it moves you more. I mean, you know, all the
Yep.
different things that these things do to our senses that is great. That's why we love it, right? That's what we want our entertainment to do, is to
Exactly.
move us.
And so, what's entertaining you, intriguing you, interesting you now at this time in your life?
Just what I couldn't do when I was working all the time, and I was surrounded with just incredible, inspiring music of all kinds, but there's friends of mine playing in town, you know, just things that are happening here that I couldn't go to because I was working
Yeah.
all the time. And so now I can go, you know, hear my friends. And so I go to church on Monday and go hear Elias Hassengler and James Polk, who just turned 78, who's the mentor of so many jazz musicians in this town, who was Ray Charles's music director for years, and just these monster musicians. Then I go to Don's Depot, where Chris Gage, like with the piano, and have people sit in. It's like Cheers. Like you walk in and there are people. It's a
Hey.
time capsule. you walk in and there are people who have been going there since they were young, and now their kids are there, and their grandkids. We're going to a wedding of some friends. They're there, and so it's just this family thing where all these different kinds of music happen, and it's just a real. It's personalized in a way that there's really not another experience like that. It's personalized. They make you feel at home. You feel at home. The audience contribute. It's just this great symbiotic relationship that this town has. There's lots of these little things all around town, which is kind of where we start with this. But now I get to go out and just kind of hear the crafts people of our business work their craft, and just be an audience member and enjoy it.
And I was thinking about that as as we get a chance, like we have a certain number of people that win the lottery, the fame lottery.
Yeah.
But it appears to me that just is whatever it is, some kind of universal pinball, or something that just happens. The number gets drawn and they go.
Right.
But then underneath this, of equal talent and of equal as any of the superstars we see, is this huge, extraordinary conglomeration of people that we get a chance to experience if we're willing to go out and do it.
Yeah.
And there is an extraordinary number, as you were talking about.
Well, in this, we have such an embarrassment of riches here, and that's changing because the community's not supporting, the economy's not supporting the musicians and the artists because the cost of living is becoming so high. I know many that are leaving, but I've been many times and the reason I can do this is I retired from the university 3.5 years ago.
Right.
And, from recording the symphony and conservatory and the work that I was doing, taking a lot of my time. Now that I'm retired, I can go out and hear stuff. And I would go to hear people that are world-class musicians. And there would be 5 people. And it didn't even cost anything to get in. And there were 5 people there. And 2 of them, one of them was the sound guy, and one of them was the bartender, and one of them was me. And it's just a travesty to me. Anyway, it's just like, what a waste that you have this incredible talent that is really just being given to you, and nobody shows up to receive it.
That's what I'm wondering, though, is that this is where I'm thinking that both the internet and the ways that we're expanding, because think about it. 50,000 people that were just deeply enamored and completely on an artist, out of
Million.
4 billion,
Yeah.
4.6 billion is a tiny percentage. But you know that there are 50,000 people that have enough means to be able to give a little bit.
Yeah. You would hope.
To support that one artist, that they would be nuts about that artist.
Yeah.
Of that time, if we could figure out a way to use the law of large numbers,
Right.
to be able to support, so that if we had, like during Shakespeare's time, where you had actually working actors. Mm-hmm. You're a working actor. No, you're not making Matt Damon money, but you're having your health care paid for, and you're having your home paid for, and you're working. You got your basics taken care of, and you're getting a chance to work and create and to do what you were put on earth to do. There must be some way. To me, it's systemic. There must be something that we can do to work on that.
Well, I think number one is just people understanding the value of it again, and more often I don't agree with this, but that's often the case. Just like Joni Mitchell said, don't always seem to go that you don't know what you got till it's gone. I think people will have to have it taken away from them for them to really start to understand how valuable this thing was. The fact, there's so many things, and that's a whole other talk we could have about what took money out of the music economy.
Yeah, exactly.
Like I was teaching, and so I'm talking to young people about this and trying to understand it, and also trying to educate them about this is valuable. So you won't even pay $1 for this song. I mean, you'll pay $1 for a Coke, a soda that's going to be gone.
Right.
As soon as you drink it, I'm trying to get them to tell me, what is it? And they say, oh yeah, it's merchandise. So you sell T-shirts at the concert, and that's how you make your money. So what you're saying is that the T-shirts are what's valuable, and the T-shirts are more valuable than music. So it's just an educational paradigm shift, of people understanding the value of good art. I mean, there's a lot of crap out there. I mean,
But
that
wasn't there a lot? Wasn't there crap during
there
the
wasn't
during?
as
I'm talking about.
there wasn't as much, and here's the reason why. Because it was more expensive. You actually had to invest a lot
Thank
of
you.
time, money, and energy to make something reach this certain level, and you couldn't get enough attention. Like the thing that you're saying is like 50. Now you have to get 50,000 people yourself or whatever. There were companies that would do it, but you had to exhibit, the saleability in a market so that they would be willing to
And
invest in
get
you.
your craft at a certain level.
Right, exactly. And so the gatekeepers were sort of, it was an economic barrier to some degree that had to be met. It wasn't that because you can record stuff in your bedroom that you can make art, which is great. A great artist will do that. You give a great artist anything, and they'll make great art out of it. I mean, it's the
Yep.
beautiful, amazing thing about artists is just
Yep.
you just give them, like this genius that I work with. I mean, pots and pans. I mean, he makes music on, typewriter, and he makes music.
Yep.
So, but marketing, and so that's the thing you're saying. So, like the lottery of
Yeah.
what makes it to the top or what doesn't. Promotion, marketing. They had a better PR person, or they knew how to use YouTube better, or
Who knows?
whatever
Right.
it is. But that's kind of what it has to be. Is you've got to get enough people. You've got to get exposed to enough people and knock their socks off.
Yeah.
Because that's the other thing. It's super competitive. You want people's attention. Well, here's all the people you've got to compete with. You've got to get their attention over everybody else's. And movies. Now you've got home theaters. So, entertainers, you better make what you're doing really exciting because this is your competition. You've got blockbuster movies that people can have in
Yep.
home theaters at home. Why would they go somewhere else?
Yeah. And that's what we're learning. And this is where I think we're on a journey, on an
growth.
artistic journey and a growth. How are we going to? Because we know, you and I both know that music is essential to the human. I don't know when it arose or how, but I'm certain that we were that grunts and preceded language, and that music preceded words.
Well, and rhythm.
Something and rhythm and all the
Well, and a big part of what
Hey,
we
Donna,
call
we
music
got-
is rhythm based. And
Yeah,
so
keep going.
we're running out of time. But
we're not running out of
but the-
time.
but
We're
the thing-
beginning our time.
Like that sort of to me is the basis, and this is what music does. It's the most powerful thing that nothing else does. Is it makes people feel great music, and this is the rhythmical aspect of it mostly makes your body move involuntarily. If it's really great, you can't not move. It moves you physically, and that's music's power. And so it starts at that primal level. Dance. What makes people dance?
When you were telling me this wonderful story that I wanted to go into about you and B.B. King. So because this had to be, I mean, tell me that story as we're
Oh,
going
well,
on.
it was, I moved to Abilene. My parents divorced. I moved to Abilene, driving around with a friend of mine. I saw these primary color, poster thing that's on a telephone pole that they'd have back then. It was like, the essence of it was like B.B. King and his band of renown and like the review of the other people.
Yeah.
And I was like, whoa, B.B. King's going to play here. We got to go. And so we found out we got tickets. We went and the place held about 1,000, maybe 1,200 people. But there were about 300 or 400 people there. And, we'd gotten tickets for that. So the opening band did their thing, and then everybody just started to move down front because why not? And then B.B. King's band, sets up his intro, and then he comes out and he goes, "Looks like we got ourselves a private party," and just play, and like the band they just did their whole show, like balls to the wall, just like they do if they were playing Carnegie Hall or whatever, like the biggest house in the world. And they were bringing went up on stage dancing, and it was like we got to have a private party with B.B. King, and it just really showed me like how important this is a level of professionalism
Yes.
that you've got to have. That when you go out there, it doesn't matter if there are 3 or 4 people there.
No.
That you've got to go kick but you got to go bring your A game and like really lay it out there.
Yeah.
And I was already a fan, but like from that point I just went, this man is an idol. This is one of my heroes because that's the bar.
That's the professionalism, and that's what he brought. He brought that, and that's.
Oh yeah, and other people did too. I mean, recognized it in other people, but that was the paradigm. That was the best example of it doesn't matter who's there or who's not there. Just entertain the people there. Make it be the best it can be. You never know who's going to be there.
You never know, and that if each person, if I can do that's one of those, dance as though no one is watching.
Yeah.
As you're bringing your best, as you're sweetening, as you're working, as you're sitting in that wonderful place where there's only 5 people there, and you're getting a chance to do. This is you. You're getting a connection to all of us.
It's just an opportunity, and you just have to make of it what you can.
Yeah.
And I've been in those places, and it's hard. It's hard to get the energy to go.
Yeah.
We'd love to have a full house and people going crazy, but it's like, let's see if we can get these 5 people to really feel something.
Thank you, Andy.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. That was what I'm.
Well, I could talk to you, find out about your story too for hours.
Thank you. The thing is that I want to. I want you to help me find some of the people that you would listen to.
Oh.
You would help me to find the story as we're redoing Reasoning Spontaneous Conversation. Some people that we would never find that we'd be able to bring in and have conversation. You can help